all of that, if you're working for a company that is an enterprise company that has a lot of PR initiatives, then you're going to have lengthy reports that take hours, right? Like I remember I used to do them. It could take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours just to put on a monthly report on a PowerPoint. And it includes all the executive mentions, and the executive mentions includes all of the top tier publications. And so when you think about that, there has to be a way to do in a much faster way, and hopefully an automated way. I started out at University of San Francisco, studied and majored in bio, and then thought, gosh, I really don't like this. So, 2 semesters in, I am burned out, and I figured I have another 3.5 years to go. And I realized, why don't I do something I love? And at that point, one of my sisters was working for a company in public relations, or at least a technology that helped enable PR folks. And so she said to me, Elise, why don't you do what you're good at? You're great at talking to people. And so I was like, I never thought of that as a profession, because at the time, when you're growing up, you always think, I'm going to be a surgeon, I'm going to be a doctor. And so I was reaching this point in my life where I thought, gosh, I really don't like biology, or I just don't have a knack for it, right? There were folks that had a photographic memory that could just take tests like that. And then there was me who was trying to learn everything. And so I took a semester off, and then I came back and I was like, okay, let's do it. And so I majored in communication studies, and that's where I started to really learn about qualitative work. And that's where I started to learn about the themes of communication, why people say the things they say, and why they engage in the way that they do. And that was really intriguing to me as a comms major. So that's how I started on the path of communications. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very lucky. I think on the communication side, when we look at data, we look at it from how many mentions did we get? The share of voice, how's it increasing across the company, the clients that we're working with, and their competitors, right? Is it increasing? Is it not? And if it isn't, what else can we do, right? So we use it as a way to inform our initiatives. And then when I worked over at Genius and more on the marketing side, we looked at it from a lead gen perspective and a demand gen perspective, right? So if we put out a campaign, it helped us really identify how much of interest was there from the market, right? So if I put out an email, how many opens did I get? How many clicks? Were there people who were engaged? Did people sign up for the forms? Are the forms working? So it helps you understand if the things that you're working on is working or not. So it was a great pulse check for that. We did a media campaign on The Single Source of Truth is Dead, and then we also did a media campaign on our H2, essentially momentum release, which surrounded around all the awards that we've won, as well as customer case studies, how we were working with customers, as well as awards. And so as a part of that, we saw an uptick in pickup releases. We saw an uptick in traffic to our website, and we saw an uptick to look at click-throughs in that piece of media when we pushed it out on social. And so for that, we saw it come through to our website. We saw people come through and ask for more demos as well. I think that one of the biggest challenge in communications is the lack of alignment across the organization. So in communication in particular, sometimes you have revenue teams that look at you and say, well, what's the value, right? How many leads are you bringing in? And over here on the communication side, you're trying to tell a story. You're trying to position the organization or whoever it is you represent in a way where it stands, essentially distinguishes itself in a marketplace. And so I think the alignment and the education there can be lacking, in the sense that when you're in PR and you put out an article, or you secure a couple articles, the revenue or the executive team, perhaps the marketing team, is going to say to you, how many leads did you get, right? but the metrics, the KPIs there are very different. So I think that if the teams can align on the KPIs as you go to market, as you go and you achieve your objectives, and understanding that, hey, we're going to put out all of these pitches and we're going to secure maybe 2 to 5 articles, but they are for these reasons, and aligning with your organization on that front will help set you up for success. And then educating them that it is a long-term game, while the short-term game, it is executing on that as well, but it's about working on it incrementally. And so alignment there is key. Creating a unified view, especially across your systems. When you're aligning across your systems, you're able to analyze all of that data together and then activate it on it together. And when you're working in unison and in sync like that, that's when you're able to achieve much more of the success than working in silos. I feel like right now, where the state of the market is, I feel like it's a very holistic number. And so what that means today, where I sit, it's more on the social side. It's more about how many people are looking at our content, because we're, as we know, buyers aren't as into gated content anymore, right? But you can start to see the saturation in PR as well. So for me, I wouldn't say it's the most important metric, but it certainly impacts the word of mouth that we see. And instead of, on this side of the turf, instead of reporters writing or talking or mentioning about us, it's more about people, right? Peers across LinkedIn and social. Are they talking about us? And so to answer your question, I wouldn't say that it's the most important. I think it definitely impacts the overall experience and journey of a customer, and it definitely influences the buyer journey. Definitely see data being a critical part in aligning teams. So what that means is going back to the 360 unified view of your customer profile and understanding who is it that you're talking to, right? Are you talking to the same person? And if you are, then tackling it from a communication standpoint and tackling it from a marketing standpoint as well as a sales standpoint will be critical. So instead of working in silos, data will be that one piece that aligns all of the teams to work together to talk to the same person. I've been in scenarios where I worked respectively only in HubSpot and the sales team worked in their own CRM. So we didn't even talk to each other, right? And the customer journey was already disconnected at the onset, because I would hand off these leads and they wouldn't, like an egg, it wasn't being carried over, or if it was a disjointed journey. And so that in itself was a challenge, because we weren't speaking the same language. We weren't delivering the same promises, right? And then, I've been in organizations where marketing wasn't that important and comms wasn't that important, and it was C-suite that drove the initiative, right? It was whatever C-suite wanted, because the C-suite was either a product specialist or they're generally a builder, so they build a product but they don't understand the marketing pieces. And so being able to educate that is also a challenge, and that's where your data will also become very important, because when you're working with leadership that doesn't understand marketing, you have to prepare all of the data points to demonstrate and prove your point as to why you need to deliver on a campaign, or as to why you need to go out and tell these stories, as to why you need to have a story around X, Y, and Z. So even that side is a different kind of force, if you will. I think currently today, I would say in an ideal world, it would be where I live the most. So today is essentially in Salesforce, Marketo, HubSpot. I would also say in LinkedIn, across Sprout Social. I think understanding where people are and what they're talking about, especially in communities as well. So that's more so on the dark side. Yes, exactly. Of what the boots on the ground, right? You're in the communities. What are they talking about? These are your buyers. These are their struggles and their challenges. Understanding that is where I mostly live. I think it's always the typical one, of course, is at what point do you meet your prospect? At what point do you begin to see them turn into an opportunity? At what point do you close them? And at what point do they become your champion? So I think all of those data points are always good for me, especially also what's important to me, right? Like, but in them. So what do they come to us for? What are their pain points? And then what kind of services, products do we solve them for? And then taking all of that and then building stories around it. So I'm looking at the full 360 picture. I'm not just looking at one data point. I'm looking at all the critical ones that continue to be meaningful to the customer. And that's, if it's meaningful to the customer, then it's meaningful to me. Yeah, when you're looking on the pure comm side as well as the digital side, I think it's those monthly reports, right? I think some companies even do daily reports of these were all of the mentions, these are all the links, and this was the sentiment. That is also really stressful, especially for teams. But the monthly and the quarterly ones can be pretty long and lengthy. I would say when we're looking at metrics, we're generally looking at how many articles were featured, mentioned. We're looking at the sentiment. Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? And then we're also looking at the impressions, right? That means or unique visitors per month for each article. Usually we look at it by the outlet, but if we're not able to, then we look at it by the article and vice versa. And so all of that, if you're working for a company that is an enterprise company that has a lot of PR initiatives, then you're going to have lengthy reports that take hours, right? Like I remember I used to do them. It could take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours just to put on a monthly report on a PowerPoint. And it includes all the executive mentions, and the executive mentions includes all of the top tier publications. And so when you think about that, there has to be a way to do in a much faster way, and hopefully an automated way. I know when I was doing it, even automated reports weren't efficient enough or weren't accurate. So we would still have to comb through daily Google scrubs. So if you imagine daily Google scrubs, monthly daily Google scrubs. And so that is, and then we put it on a document, right? A document, and then, or an Excel sheet, can you imagine? And then we put it onto a PowerPoint. So the short answer to that is we still track for the number of mentions, we still track for the number of articles, we still track for impressions, and then on the social side, followers across each channel, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, we still track for engagements, likes, how many reactions, and the growth month over month. I would say be curious. Be curious. I would say gather all of the data points that you can, as much as you can, whether you realize it or not. Your company will likely ask you for it. If they don't ask you for it, they will thank you for it. And that will help you be a smarter communicator. Even if you just leverage a data point somewhere from one of your stories and or something from your customers or your usage or whatever the case may be, or even like your website traffic, whatever, take that and build a story out of it. Numbers do still matter. And so I would say, on the comm side, we often think, oh, it's all about how you tell the story and how you position it. But what's most meaningful to your readers are the numbers too. So keep going at it, keep an open mind, and be curious.